Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about the Ogre rework, the overhaul if you will, for Total War Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires, Omens of Destruction DLC. Now, there are changes with regards to Greases and with Scrag, but I'll talk about those in a separate video, as well as other changes for existing Legendary Lords. Here I want to talk about the Ogre rework, and I think the best place to start is with the camps themselves. Camps were a very annoying system, a very limiting factor in terms of an Ogre campaign, because a lot of units could only be recruited from camps. Heroes could only really be recruited from camps. Hero capacity could only be increased from camps. A lot of that has changed. First and foremost, in terms of cost. Camps no longer use the growth system, so you no longer have to wait for surplus points to be able to grow camps. It was pretty broken before, because you could get potentially a Ogre contract, or a bounty as it's called right now, to get a lot of camp growth, or you would have really bad growth. Now, all camps use food, and only food, for buildings. So the main building, the recruitment buildings, everything is using meat, not food, meat in an Ogre campaign. You don't have a growth system anymore. You don't spend money anymore. All you're using is meat. And the way you gain this meat, yes, camps will generate a certain amount of meat in a radius. Or there will be a certain amount of meat that does get generated every turn. So like, for instance, over here, like you've got 12 meat being generated per turn for this particular Ogre camp. But the main way you gain meat is through battles. So this helps solve one of the biggest issues Ogres had, that they would have a meat deficit before that would really hurt their campaigns if you moved outside of the circle of influence of a camp, because you weren't generating enough meat from battles. Now, you do generate a lot more meat from battles, and you're looking at thousands and thousands of meat per army that you can generate through battles. I think the level of troops that you're dealing with, the level of settlements that you're looting or sacking, because looting and sacking them will give you a lot more meat, that does play a role in all of this, a major role in all of this. So you do have a lot more meat, and you can transfer the meat only one way, from any army to any camp. You still have a limited number of camps, but because of the way you're using meat, you don't necessarily care about having as many camps as possible. You care about a couple of camps that you level up and you use those camps. That's a much better system than existed before, because before you wanted to get as many camps as possible, partly for income purposes. You'd get global income benefits. That's been removed, so you don't have that system anymore for camps, like increasing the income from settlements. I'll talk about settlements in just a bit. But instead, you do make it work much better with a limited number of camps, which does affect your recruitment, the variety of units you can get. I made some mistakes in this campaign. I could have had more varied armies had I handled things better in this particular campaign by turn 20 over here. As it is, I have a bunch of heroes and Ogre bulls with dual weapons. Camps can also be moved, though not in the sense they have movement. They don't. Now, maybe this is subject to change between this version that I'm playing and the final version, because the version I'm using for recording, there's already another version that's out, and then another version after that. What kind of changes? I don't expect major changes, but some bug fixes, all that kind of stuff. Just worth pointing out. However, what you can do is you can pack up a camp, and then you can get that camp. Let's use this army as an example. Just move this particular army. You can then recruit a camp from the ones you've packed up. So let's say I pack up this camp right here. Then you have a cooldown period of 5 turns. Don't believe there's a way to speed this up. You have 5 turns before you can redeploy it. And you can deploy it wherever you want. Now, you already have a much better situation on meat. So you don't need camps as much as you did before, but you have more flexibility where you're using them. You do have some limitations, and maybe you should be able to move, to redeploy camps faster for a cost, potentially, something like that. But that is how it currently stands in this particular version of the game that I'm showing off right here. So that is already a great system. So meat is improved, camps are improved. Let's talk about minor settlements. So Ogre settlements still only go to tier 3. Mountains, non-mountains, like in their blog post, they are like making a reference like, oh, non-mountain territories would be just outposts, but I don't really see that. Like maybe that's some change they were supposed to bring and they didn't. Don't know what's happening over there, but regardless of that, minor settlements only still go to tier 3. Landmarks, all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. You do get a wider diversity of units to recruit from, and every single hero type, including the new Bruiser, who is just basically a melee version, a hero version of the Ogre Tyrant. Though he's more there to support the army, to buff some troops, as opposed to Tyrant, who's obviously leading the army, but you do get, like, stand or die, for instance, ability over here. And a melee skill line for that. So now you can recruit every single hero from minor settlement and increase capacity at tier 3 for every single hero type in the Ogre roster. This is great already. But then on top of that, we have a new Noblar recruitment building. We have and a bunch of other changes. So you can get pickback riders. I don't bother with Noblar units, at least the melee ones. Or at least the non-artillery variants. So I couldn't tell you how great these guys are. I haven't used them. But you do get the scrap launcher from tier 3 over here from minor settlement. You do get lead belchers from tier 3. That's been changed. You get Yetis, the new unit, which kind of on a similar level to Gorgers, though. Less damage, more survivability and magical attacks. So they're better against demons. I think Gorgers are just better against everything because they do so much freaking damage. Unbreakable is hit or miss. Sometimes it's useful, many times it's not. You can also get giants as well. So there's a far greater variety of units, including artillery, ranged units, giants, that you can recruit from regular Ogre settlements. And these things combined make it so that you're no longer facing the same limitations on unit recruitment and hero recruitment in an Ogre campaign, which is why Ogres, one of the reasons Ogres sucked so much before, the limitations on that. Furthermore, the Ogre economy from regular settlements is better. Yes, we lost that global income benefit, but we gain a lot more money in Ogre campaigns. Up to 400 income from a minor settlement in an Ogre campaign. With obviously things like hero capacity, control, corruption, all those kind of things in an Ogre campaign. You can no longer buff the income, so you lose the income modifiers, and you do spend more money on these structures, these income structures, but overall, from my experience playing Golfag, Greasus, even a bit of Scrag, you generate a lot more money in an Ogre campaign, largely because you save a lot of money from not having to spend it on camps whatsoever. So you end up having more armies, greater diversity of those armies. Again, like, I could have had better diversity had I not screwed up some things with the camp. Like, I made some mistakes were made in this campaign, but suffice to say, this is unusual. Like, I've tried several campaigns. By this point, you can get, like, I'm already recruiting Iron Guts and Lead Belchers, despite the mistakes I've made. So those are phenomenally good changes. Changes to meat, changes to camps, changes to settlements, changes to hero capacity. On top of that, with regards to Ogre bounties, they've added the decline bounty button. So they changed the way bounties work, but now they've also given us a way to decline a bounty if we think it's not worth it. Though I do see a tendency for the AI to give you a bunch of contracts, or for the system to give you a bunch of contracts that just repeat themselves. So I think there's still some work to be done with regards to that, but just the fact that we can get rid of bounties that we don't want is great. Another thing on top of that is that Ogres now have a similar confederation mechanic to Norska and Greenskin. So you can confederate for diplomacy. Like, that's how I got the Sons of the Mountains over here. By the way, Gremgor came over here barreling, so I had to sell him some territory to get him off my back. No problem, we'll just buy that. Yes, one of Greece's unique mechanics. I'll talk about that again in a future video. But yes, oh, I'll just buy the territory back and gain the diplomatic benefits with a particular faction. Regardless, on top of that, we gotta talk about Lord and Hero skill lines, and then research. Some changes over here, not necessarily the greatest ones in the world, but, you know, Hero killing, blow for tyrants. So each Ogre, Lord, and Hero, I'm not gonna go over everything, it's like melee combat capabilities, control, hero killing blow for tyrants, magical capabilities for slaughtermasters and butchers. And for paymasters, let me just talk about the new paymaster at least. So paymaster gets choice between combat benefit, recruitment benefit, or campaign movement range and vigor loss reduction. Then he has cash cascade for charge bonus, melee attack, leadership, upkeep, post-battle loot, physical resistance, melee attack, melee defense, weapon strength for all units of a certain rank, and then effect duration and cooldown reduction for that cash cascade. There's also new skills snacks for regeneration. That's the new Ogre Paymaster. For the Bruiser, for the new Bruiser, we got a choice at level 10 between, again, various combat benefits or ward save character experience gain. Then at level 12, we get the entire skill line of, you know, puncture, so Sunder Armor, melee attack, mass, melee defense, physical resistance, hero action benefits, armor piercing bonus for infantry, and stand or die. Furthermore, we also have, for Slaughtermasters and Butchers, we have Lore of Heavens and Death, so we no longer have just Lore of the Grey Maw and Lore of Beasts. Don't think there's any real changes to Lore of Lore of the Maw, the Grey Maw lore. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's any kind of changes with regards to that. But yeah, we get more heroes, and that means campaign movement range, training, you know, fire belly scouting, all that kind of stuff. Then we have Bragg the Gutsman, who is very strong in melee. He has foreboding executioner, so he will execute units below 20% HP threshold, which can be upgraded with foreboding executioner upgraded. So if we look at this ability, it has 1 use by default, it gets to 3 uses. Various other benefits like reducing melee defense, increasing enemy wound recovery time, control, growth, construction cost, immune to psychology for your army, and removes immune to psychology for the enemy army, and hero action chances. To get Bragg, by the way, you do get quests. I think you need a certain level, not quite sure which it is, maybe 15 or so, and you have to assassinate an enemy character. It's probably the only time you have to go out of your way to assassinate someone, but still, like, you just get an assassination action or a wound action and you get him. He spawned at my capital over here in this particular situation. Beyond that, beyond everything that I've discussed so far, research. Changes to the Ogre research. We now have 2 tabs, tribes and hordes. So if we look at hordes, it's just like various combat benefits. It's the same for Khorne, right? Combat benefits and then, you know, campaign benefits. I personally don't care about combat benefits, but yeah, you know, leadership, melee attack, that kind of stuff, the kind of stuff you would usually expect. With regards to tribes, however, you actually start with the camp limit unlocked from the beginning of your campaign. Scrag and Goldfag start with a camp each. Greases does not, but he has access to one that he can get for Confederation, or he can build one very early on. So in terms of changes over here, you do have like the big tents for global recruitment capacity, local recruitment capacity, various other things, diplomatic relations with all factions. If you want to play the diplomacy game, You still have Ogre Frong, so that gives you basically that replaces some of the benefits like Sky Titans, Plateaus, or all that. So some things are named the same, but the effects have changed. Quite crucially, you can get extra own population surplus point for newly captured settlements. Various other benefits over here, so Lord of Crew rank control. Like, what's here focuses on camps, what's here focuses on regular settlements. That's probably the best way to describe it. I think like what's in the tribes is generally more useful. And yeah, if you want this, you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time unlocking, because you're gonna need to get to the gold standard, funnily enough, and then get to Ogre Frong. So kind of bit weird with regards to research, hero capacity, even more hero capacity research. Though considering you can easily increase all hero capacity at tier 3, is that really that important? Maybe, maybe not. Can help you out sometimes. And you do get hero capacity +2 for hunters over here. Bigger camp, meat construction. So there's various research that increases hero capacity, gives you various campaign benefits over here through the research construction time for province, capital, settlement, buildings, that kind of stuff, right? So plenty of nice and useful things that you can get over here. I think overall the research tree is far more useful, at least from a practical standpoint, because I typically want to go for campaign benefits, and the fact that we have that split between combat benefits and campaign benefits is very freaking welcome. In terms of like combat benefits, I don't believe there's anything like a shield wall ability that they added for dwarves, so I don't think that there's anything like that added for the ogres. Then we have the meat meter for individual armies. So depending on the meat level, you can either have extra upkeep, lower leadership, lower mass, lower casualty replenishment, or you get various army abilities over here dependent on the meat level. So you do obviously want to have it as high as possible. Though if you want to spend all the meat on camps, you can do so. It's punishing. I'd say the most punishing aspect with regards to a low meat level is like just casualty replenishment aspect, because yeah, minus 15% is pretty significant. But you can handle like being, famished, ravenous, all that, as opposed to just gluttonous all the time. You would probably want to be gluttonous, but if you want to grow your camps as quickly as possible, you might want to make that particular sacrifice with regards to it. And by the way, with regards to these abilities, the way you charge them up is by getting charge kills. So with ogres, you want to do a lot of cycle charging in order to fill up these ability meters to be able to use them. Finally, in terms of offers to the Grey Maw, you have 4 offers to the Grey Maw. One gives you spell benefit, so spell resistance, power recharge, reserves per second, ability over there. Effect intensity increases with each kill made by the unit. Winds of Magic and that ability. Then we have Feasting Frenzy for melee abilities, base weapon damage, armor piercing weapon damage charge bonus. Ravening Horde causes attrition to enemy armies in province, income from raiding. And All-Consuming Stomachs, which is pretty important because it gives you campaign move range and crucially, tunneling. So you get the underway stance for all ogre armies in a campaign. That is pretty damn substantial, all things considered. Also, I gotta point out the Eshin Man-Eater, pretty damn good unit to have in a campaign. So you get Eshin Man-Eater, Piggyback Knights, and I think the Snowhorn of Morn, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that. Don't think I am. I think that is the Regiment Renowned, the extra Regiment Renowned that you get over there. So that is with regards to ogres, the things they've changed, the things they've added. I'll talk about the individual campaigns, like the change ones in a separate video, and obviously Goldfax, Call Taker, and Gorbad when I'm allowed to do so. So I can't talk about those campaigns. We'll show off their defeat rates, starting positions later on as well. Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more. I can't give you a review about like, this about all of this, but I will say I did not like the ogres before. I think they were one of the worst races to play in the game. I can't say I'm a big fan of Greases in general, but that's just Greases. But I will say that I've certainly enjoyed myself a lot more playing them than I did before. Like, more unit variety, hero variety, better income, less misery in a campaign. Like, it feels like I can actually compete with Grimgor nowadays. Though, that may also have to do with some of the changes with the greenskins. Spoiler alert, there might have been some nerfs to the greenskins. Well, nerfs would probably be a strong word. Changes that do affect their campaign playstyle. And prevent some of the bullshit that greenskins were able to do before from happening, but they're still very, very strong. So ogres, they are a very strong race in the city. Like, there's a reason people hire ogre mercenaries despite all the issues you have with them. Like, there's a reason why one of the biggest challenges in the lore to Grimgor was actually Greasus. For a bloody good freaking reason. Before he beat the crap out of him. Or before Greasus decided to be stupid and Grimgor just took the opportunity to kill him and then took control of all the ogres. So now it feels like very appropriate. And I just gotta end with this. CA is not adding the new characters in Realms of Chaos, but these racial changes for Khorne, for greenskins, for ogres, if you're looking at replaying Realms of Chaos for whatever reason, it is probably going to be a much better experience with every single one of these lords for these existing races. That's all I gotta say on that. Kosin, signing out.